Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. I'm Robin, and what do we have today? The start of another vlog, because that's apparently what I do around here now. That's all I do. Anywho's it's, what's today's vlog about? Well, I really am trying to read the books on my shelves and to get them off of my shelves. If I don't love them, I just need space for more things, you know what I mean? Things that I love. And so I really want to get, if you've seen my last bookends, you know that I'm doing a pretty good job of getting my books read, although it's mostly because I'm not bringing books in. So am I really doing a great job? Unsure. But what we're gonna do today is I have a whole bunch of Book of the Month books. I've canceled my subscription because I just wasn't getting anything that I was interested in. I kept skipping the month, but I have a bunch of Book of the Month books that I have not read. And so I thought, you know what? Let's go ahead and read my lowest rated Book of the Month books. See how it goes. This is my thinking. My thinking is that because they are the lowest rated, the possibility of me DNFing them like soon or midway through is very high. So this could be the fastest vlog ever. Because like, just imagine I DNF all of them. They're the lowest rated. Clearly I am not going to stick around to read them. We're gonna find out together. So let's talk about what these books are that I have. These are the books that I'm gonna be reading. And in order from lowest rated to highest of the lowest, I'm only gonna read these three because who's got time for more? We have Imposter Syndrome by Kathy Wang. This comes in at an average rating of 3.28. I think that this is about a Russian spy who runs like a tech company in the US but uses the company as a front to get information for Russia. And then a girl at the company finds out that she is stealing the data and giving it to Russia. Sounds vaguely what it's about. I could very easily crack this open, read the inside right here and tell you what it's about. But am I gonna do that? Nope, we're just gonna use my imagination. Anywho's it, that's what I think that this is about, and that's what we're gonna read. The next book I have is The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. This is sitting pretty at a 3.64 average rating on Goodreads. And I think this one is about map makers, because they're cartographers, and they make maps of fantasy worlds. And then the last one I have is Did You Hear About Kitty Carr by Crystal Smith Paul. I don't fully know what this one is about. I know that there is a girl who receives money from like this very famous Hollywood actress, and she's like, I don't know why I've received this money. Like, they knew each other, but not enough to like leave your entire inheritance to this girl when they're not family. This gives very strong The Vanishing Half meets The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo vibes. And both books are ones that I thoroughly enjoyed. I think that this is going to be the best one out of all of them. This is the highest rated of all of the three books at a 3.76. Do I have high hopes for any of these? Probably this one the most, but the other two, we shall see. I feel like the Russian spy one could have some potential. Honestly, I think that all of these have potential because I got them because they seemed intriguing to me. And I'm hoping that I'm wrong and I'm not just going to DNF them after 50 pages. And then I see them through and I'm like glowing 5 stars, all of them. Imagine me giving 3 books in a row 5 stars. Sounds illegal. Anywho's that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start off with the lowest and get right into the magic that is Imposter Syndrome. So let's talk about the first book, Imposter Syndrome by Kathy Wang. I don't remember if I gave a brief synopsis, even though we all know I never know what it's about. But about here, so I'm 82 pages in. So maybe like a quarter of the way. But we've got a book. There are 3 So far, 3 different point of views happening. So the first point of view that we have is from Leo. He's like a Russian spy recruiter. And so one of the people that he has recruited is this woman named Julia. He actually recruited her. He noticed her in a Russian orphanage when she was like 6 or something. And then he was like, I'm going to keep an eye on her. She seems like a special kid. And when she graduated from college with a, I want to say, computer sciences degree, he was like, we are going to use her to infiltrate US systems. And subsequently, we meet Julia, who has been brought to America. She starts at, I want to say, like a startup company, and then progresses and makes her way into creating her own startup company, which then becomes this huge company. Kind of like if Google and Facebook came together and had a baby. This is like her company called Tangerine. She achieved getting Tangerine by being put in places where other tech people would be, and also being given money so that she would have money to, like, you know, invest in these things. And then so she climbed her way up so that she is now I think she's either CEO. But one of the things that has happened since Julia has started Tangerine and kind of grown with the company is that she has been a dormant spy a little bit. Like, they haven't requested too much information of her. Every once in a while, they'll be like, hey, can you get me a name? Can you get me a person, a location? But like, she's really been coasting. She's really just been out here living her best billionaire dreams, something that she would never have thought would be her life, coming from the orphanage that she came from in Russia. So she's just like, all right, this is great. This is all Russia needs from me. And then until the day of her wedding, where she has married this all-American doctor guy who just looks good for her profile. And it's like the day after her wedding, and Leo is there. Leo has kind of moved from spy recruiter to Julia's handler. And so he's also living in California along with Julia. And he's like, hey, it's time for us to call in our favor. We have helped you get into this place of prominence, and now you got to give us something back. And he's like, just know that every once in a while, we're going to need some information on people in your Tangerine system. And Julia's like, we can't do that, because one of the things that we have promised to clients that use Tangerine is that their privacy is highly regarded, and we're not going to touch that. And Leo's like, that's cute. Love that. But these are the people that we want information on, and you're going to get us that information because I know you have the ability to. And so you're going to do it. What do you think we installed you in this position for? And Julia's just like, you're not about to ruin everything that I have worked for just so that you can have information. And I think that Julia has forgotten that she is supposed to be a Russian spy. She's supposed to be using her access to the American people or anybody that's on this Tangerine system for the Russians. Not that I'm saying like that she should, but I'm just saying like that was her initial purpose. And because she had been dormant for so long, she just kind of forgot and started like easing into this life, trying to solidify herself as a dominant female force in this overwhelmingly male industry. She does interviews about what it's like to be the only woman in a room full of men, how she really strives to get women in other positions of power in the tech industry, how she wants to champion the working mom because industry does not set it up for working mothers to succeed. And she's like, I cannot crumble this image that I have. What if I get caught? And what are you gonna do? Just send me back to Russia? My reputation will be ruined. And Leo's like, I don't care. So Julia's like, all right, well, let me start getting this stuff because you said you need it, and apparently that's what I'm supposed to do. So she's working incognito in what's called like God mode, which is something that her and her partners have decided that they were never going to use because it gives you access to everyone's information, private or not. Then you have the third point of view, Alice. Alice is an employee at Tangerine. I want to say she's like entry to mid-level, but like she works on back end type stuff. She runs reports, and one day she's running a report. She notices an anomaly amongst the data that's being pulled. Like, why is somebody looking into a certain user is looking into other users' information? She stumbles upon God mode and is like, oh my gosh, this should not be allowed. Should I tell somebody? Should I tell Julia, who's like the head of this company? What should I do? Here's the other thing. Alice also doesn't want to rock the boat. She is a first generation Chinese American woman, and she just really is like in this job because she knows that it brings some stability to her life. She knows that is something that her parents are looking for from, for her. Like, they came here so that she would have a stable life, so that she would have a worry-free life. And so this job is that for her. She's not working in the service industry, which her mother does. I don't know if what her father does, but like, I think her mother runs a convenience store. So I was like, I don't really want to rock the boat, because if I bring this to the attention, they'll think that I did it or that I have knowledge about it. But if I don't bring it up, then they'll be like, why didn't you bring this up? This is your job to spot these things in the report. So she's like really conflicted about it. However, she's conflicted about it, but she's also curious because she notices what God mode can do. And so she starts looking into a person from her past. And I'm not really sure why she's looking into this person yet. I suspect that Alice finds out Julia is the person that is running God mode and getting information from people. I feel like she's gonna blackmail her. Like, hey, if you don't stop using this, or if you like don't get me a higher level position, I'm gonna expose you. That's what I assume is gonna happen. So far, I'm having an okay time. I think that I'm interested because I want to see what happens, because obviously Alice has just gotten access to God mode, and so I really want to see like how she captures Julia. I can't say that the writing is super compelling where I'm just like, I gotta keep reading. So I'm gonna say it's taken me a couple of days to just get to these 80 pages. And that may just because my brain is just not on reading. Maybe, I don't know. But we shall see where this is all going. I'll give you an update when there is something to update. Good morning. I thought you'd appreciate this angle of seeing Blair take his morning nap. I know, I love to see this little face while it naps, because that means it's quiet. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Blair and his yapping. We're here to talk about this book. And I kind of wish we weren't. I can see how it was among my lowest rated. I'm very surprised that I have not DNF'd it. Oh, I thought he was awake. Just changing positions. Anyway, I read about 150-ish pages. I don't understand math. Basically, I am a little over halfway. I'm a little over halfway. And what I've deduced is I'm bored. Who would think that a tech person realizing that there's some espionage happening would just be so boring? But it is Alice, the Tangerine employee, who has stumbled upon the use of God mode and the potential spying on people. Kind of used it for her own gain. I think I said that. And she has also figured out that it is Julia who is orchestrating all of this. She still doesn't understand like what it's for, and the bits of information that are being obtained seem really inconsequential. So it's like, why are you looking up this person? And so Julia is actually away on maternity leave. You kind of get into the mind of Julia more. You know, she feels like she actually built this company from the ground up herself, even though she had a little bit of a start. She had the knowledge, and she created this persona around herself that makes her appealing to people and seem friendly and kind of attainable. Like her position is something that other women can achieve and be. And so she's been away on maternity leave. She's having some issues adjusting to being a new mother and just being in her relationship with her husband, who is not being like dad of the year at this point. And so she's like, you know what, this is all fun, but I need to get back to work, because one, there's things I need to do. Two, no one can run this company like I can. And three, like, I need to be back at work. So she goes back to work and she hears about an incident report. I think it was an incident report or something. And she's just like, does someone know what I've been doing? She finds out that Alice is the person who has run this report. And she's like, is this something? Is this nothing? Let's keep an eye on it. So basically you're just in the mind of Julia as she's been on maternity leave this whole time. You're in the mind of Alice as she is using God mode for her own devices, looking up information about someone from her past that has done something that she just can't let go of. And Leo, who is waffling between trying to protect Julia and like make sure that she can just continue maintaining the life that she wants, also maintaining the life that he wants, because he's like, this is super low-key, easy breezy, I'm not trying to do too much. And also get Julia to do the thing that he is requesting of her, which is to get the information and pass it along. Now, when Leo has been getting this information, you get like little bits of some of the people that he's requested information from and a little bit of the reason why they want the information of that person and then what happens to that person. And I'm so bored. I'm really bored. I'm not having a good time. I don't really like any of the characters. The plot is like long, meandering. We're not really getting anywhere interesting. What are we doing here? This is not the worst thing I've ever read in my life. But is it the greatest? No. At best, it's a solid 3 at this point, which makes sense considering that I think this was like a 3.28. I think I like looked at the ratings on Goodreads, and if I can remember, I'll put them here. But I think like overwhelmingly, it's like a 3-star. You know how like normally there's a little bit of scatters, you know, there's like 5s and 4s. It's just like a straight 3 across the board. It's just like, everyone's like, it's fine, I guess. I'm gonna switch the audio, hopefully finish this out, and I will be back when I'm done with this, which will hopefully be soon. But I'm hoping in these next pages, something really interesting happens. We go out with a bang. You know, I hope there's some blackmail or something. Give us something. Anything. And I am back. I've accomplished so much today. I worked out, I washed my hair, which is a feat in itself. And I finished Imposter Syndrome. And I'm gonna tell you, giving it a strong 3. I'm going between like a 2.75 and a 3 because, again, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever read. But was it fun? Was it good? Not for a lot of it. It was so slow going for so long. For all of the book, actually. And you get to a point where you think that things are gonna come to a head with Alice and Julia, and it doesn't. I just felt so underwhelmed by the ending. It was just like, okay, this is what happens. And I can see why it is not highly rated, because it was really underwhelming. Like, I don't have another word for it. There's nothing that particularly happened where you're just like, oh my gosh, that's insane, that's crazy. Alice does a couple of things to further the investigation into what Julia is doing. And then the whole time you're just hearing like from Julia's point of view as a tech mogul and a new mother, and you're just getting in her mind, and she's just like, I don't have time for this shit. I'm trying to run a business and, you know, be mom of the year, and or at least look like I'm mom of the year and make it seem like it's so easy and attainable and other people can achieve it. And so that's really what's going on with Julia. And then you have Leo, who is reminiscing on his kind of past life before he became Julia's handler, and how he was as a spy recruiter. And I was bored the whole time. I pushed through because I had the audiobook and it was keeping me company while I was doing my hair. but also because I thought that we were gonna come to a moment where it was just all came to a head and there was gonna be like some one-on-one type stuff and like a really gotcha moment, and the only person who got was me. I'm actually on my way to meet up with a friend, and we're doing kind of a book swap of sorts. They're all my books. She's giving me a book back, I'm giving her some new books. Is it a book swap, exchange? I don't, what do you call it when they're your own books? Anyway, I'm gonna go meet up with her. I haven't seen her, like hung out with her in a little bit, so I'm excited to do that. And then when I come home, get into bed, I think I will start the cartographers. That's the plan. Confession time. I hopped on to say it is 11. It's 11 o'clock. I'm just getting home. So, am I going to read the cartographers tonight? No. But will I start fresh in the morning? Maybe? I had such a good time being out with my friend tonight. I feel like I hadn't seen her, like we hadn't hung out in a while, so it was good to just hang out. Did I get my book back? No, that's fine. Okay. Fine? I was gonna say that's fine. It's okay. All the things. And tomorrow, I will start fresh with the cartographers. It's been a slow morning, so I took some time to read. And I've gotten to about 100 pages in this, and I'm gonna DNF this. I'm gonna let this one go. I don't even remember what the rating is, but I know that it was higher rated than Imposter Syndrome. But man, I am bored. This book starts off with Nell Young. She is a cartographer, but she's not really able to get a job because of something that happened. And so she actually works at a company that manufactures fake maps that like based off of real maps, and then they sell them to people, and she's a little self-righteous about it, like, oh my god, how could these people purchase these imitation maps? Like, girl, just be grateful you have a job. You can't even afford to buy one of these expensive and distinguished map that you want to buy, like, so relax. The judgment. Anyway, she's working at this job, and very soon into it she's getting like repeat calls, and she's like, I don't know who this is and I don't know what's going on. But then the person trying to get in contact with her is the police to say, hey girl, your father has passed. And this is really shocking to her because she has not talked to her father in a long time. And the reason for that is because her father is also a very famous, well-known cartographer and works at the New York Public Library. And that's where she had been interning and was hoping to get a job after an internship. But she discovers something, and she thinks this could be the beginning of my career if I take what's in this box, which is an old gas station map from the 1930s of like New York or something. And she's like, I think that maybe I could do something with it. We'll see. And her father, she shows it to her father, and he's like, no, this is trash. I don't even know why you went down to look in the basement to find something. And then she's like, I don't think it is. She's like trying to stand her ground. And her dad is like, no. And they really get into it. So much so that the director of their department comes down and is like, what's going on? And the father's like, listen, if you don't kick her out of here, I'm going to leave, and you can't afford to lose me in this institution. So the director is like, I'm sorry, baby girl, you got to go, because your dad is a little bit more established and a little bit more prominent than you are. And so we're going to keep him. And so Nell basically gets blacklisted. Can you get blacklisted? Is there a cartographer industry? I don't know, but she gets blackballed. She can't really get a job. She can't get a recommendation for other institutions, so she ends up at this place. So she goes and she's going through her father's things, and she's just like, wow, we didn't talk. They didn't have like the best relationship prior to his death because her mother passed away when she was very young, and so she kind of has remnants of her mom, but she didn't grow up with her mom. She really grew up with her dad, and he was a little distant, but still a loving father and very attentive. And when she thought that like becoming a cartographer and following in his footsteps, and I think her mother was a cartographer too, that it would bring them closer together. And instead, they have this huge rift between them. They never speak, and he passes. The circumstances surrounding his death are odd. On the surface, it seems like he has just had a heart attack. He hit his head on the edge of his table, and that was that. But then, like the next day, there's a break-in at the library, and somebody else is attacked. There are all these things that could have been taken out of the New York Public Library, and the only thing that seems to be fiddled with was her father's desk. Prior to the break-in, she had taken something out of the secret compartment. So she's like, were they looking for the thing in the secret compartment? Like, you go through all this space and all this office space and you don't take anything. So you were looking for something specific. And Nell is like, okay, well, something's going on and I want to get to the bottom of it. So she has this map that was in the secret compartment. It is the 1930s gas station map that they had to blow up over. And she's like, why would he keep this? Why is this significant? Especially considering that it ruined my career and any prospects of being in this field. So she wants to do some investigation. She also finds a card for a map dealer that people typically would not mess with. So Nell is curious about why her father would have this map as well as the contact information for this dealer woman. She's going to investigate and find out. I've gotten up to the part where she goes to meet up with this woman and they start to talk about how back in the day, this woman, Ramona, and Nell's father and mother and 4 other people became friends during college, and they were all in this program together and they went on to get their PhDs together. And their whole premise was, what if maps and books, fantasy maps, what if they were real? What if you take a map from a fantasy place and put it like somewhere in the real world? And that's like their whole working theory. And it sounds interesting because it sounds like, oh, these maps really unlock these fantasy places and probably transport you to new worlds that you didn't think it really existed, but they do. Like, you think you're reading this fiction book, but this is an actual real place, like Narnia. That sounds interesting, but I am so incredibly bored. Nell doesn't seem like an interesting character. Her dad seems like a douchebag, and you can tell that there's a brewing romance. There's some guy she was dating while she was working at the library. So you can tell that he's about to come back into the picture, and I don't care for it. I don't care for anything that's happening in this book, so I am going to go ahead and head out and go on to my next book, which is Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? And I'm hoping, praying on my knees that this is a much better book than the other 2 have been. Imposter Syndrome, let down. Cartographers, let down. So one of the 3 has to be a success, right? Surely they can't all be bad. So I'm going to take a little break. I'll watch some TV, maybe some YouTube, maybe some Spy Family. Just have a little cleanser from this book before starting my next book. Update time of Did You Hear About Kitty Carr? I am 10 chapters into this, which is about a little less than 100 pages in. So far, this is more promising than the others. I'm way more interested in what's happening than I was with Imposter Syndrome and definitely with the cartographers. But I can't say that I am super invested. So what we have so far is dual timelines. In the present, we have the St. John family. They come from kind of Hollywood royalty. The mother is an actress and the father is a music producer. And so the three daughters are also pretty famous. One, they grew up famous, and two, they've kind of established themselves in their own industries. The St. John sisters is they have just inherited the estate of a very, very well-known actress named Kitty Carr. And people are speculating why they've gotten this money. Like, what do they need it for? They're already very wealthy. They're already famous. Why would Kitty Carr leave this family all of this money? And not even just the family, but like the girls specifically. Why would she leave these girls the money? And so you're in the present mostly with Elise. She's the oldest sister and she is an actress as well. And she's trying to kind of dodge the questions from the reporters about why Kitty would leave them this money, because one, she doesn't know why, except that they were neighbors and they were pretty close. She considers Kitty like a second grandma to her. Also, Kitty's this white lady and the St. Johns are a black family, and it's like, why is this white lady leaving y'all money? The present day chapters are just not hidden. Like the dialogue doesn't feel like how anybody would talk. Nobody. And so I'm just like, oh, okay. There's clearly tension between Elise and her mother because her mother doesn't really want to talk about Kitty. And you don't know why. Elise doesn't know why. Nobody knows why except for Elise's mother. Elise herself is having her own issues because she is having somewhat of an identity crisis where like she knows she's black, but she's racially ambiguous. She has very light skin, she has light eyes, and people pick her for roles that are racially ambiguous. And so she starts making comments on her social media about police brutality and speaks out about the deaths of black people who have died at the hands of the police and just the injustice of it. And her publicist, I want to say, is just like, hey, you need to relax because the studio doesn't like this. And she's like, no, but people need to know where I stand on these issues. So that's what's happening in like present day. Also, she has been charged as the eldest sister and probably the one closest to Kitty of like going through her thing. So she started going through Kitty's stuff, not just to be closer to Kitty, but also to uncover why Kitty would leave them this stuff. Then you have the other timeline, which I'm way more interested in because I kind of see where it's going, although I'm not quite sure how we get there. Because you do know that Kitty Carr is not actually a white woman. She is a black woman who has chosen to pass as a white woman in her younger years and just continued that until her death. We go back to like 1930s, 1920s, and we're following Hazel. Hazel is living in North Carolina and she ends up working for this Lakes family. They are a tobacco conglomerate family. Lakes cigarettes are the most popular at the time. And there's a son in that family, I forget what his name is, but he rapes Hazel and Hazel becomes pregnant and she has a daughter, Mary. Mary is very light skinned. She has light eyes. She has finer hair. And so when people see Hazel and Mary together, they assume that Mary is this white little girl and Hazel is her nanny or something. And there are times when Hazel doesn't correct people so that Mary can benefit from being a white child and have all the things that she should be able to have just on the basis of being a child. But even though those times happen, Hazel still reminds Mary, like, you need to be careful. You can't just be out in this world passing and not know what the potential consequences of that is. And Mary's just very confused. She's a child at this point. And so I feel like, I'm not quite sure, but I'm like, is Mary going to have a child and then like that is Kitty, or like what's gonna happen? But that's what's happening in the past timeline, which I think is a much fuller, robust story than the present timeline with Elise and her sisters and her mother. And I would actually prefer just a book about Kitty and not about the St. John family, because even though I don't know what the connection is yet, I don't care. I'm not interested. I'm more interested in what's happening with Kitty, how she becomes this woman that is white passing. I haven't met Kitty yet. Clearly, I've only met Hazel and Mary. And so I don't know where we're going with this. But I do think it's interesting. I don't know that it's like 4 or 5 star read interesting. It could be a 4-star. We could get there. Maybe the present day chapters get fleshed out a little bit more. Those characters feel a little bit more lively. I feel like that was a very long update to say. I don't like the present chapters. I love the past chapters, and I want more of Kitty whenever she comes up, because I know that she's going to be a fabulous, glamorous lady, because it has already been said that she is a fabulous, glamorous lady. And I'd like to see what her origin story is, so we'll see about that. We're going to keep this update pretty short because I feel like my battery is going to die at any second. And also that's okay, because there's not so much to update about. I'm like halfway-ish done with Kitty Carr, and let me tell you, I'm just having an okay time. It's not like super fantastic. Again, I think I already mentioned that I'm having a better time in the past timeline, where we're learning about Mary, who we find out is actually Kitty. She grows up. Her mother sends her out to California to live with a family friend that she's grown up with. And when she gets there, she finds out, like, hey, your mom sent you here so that you could live as a white woman. And Kitty is just like, she doesn't really know how to take this. She's trying to figure out, like, what does this mean for her? Because she's not a white woman. She spent her whole life trying to live amongst her black people while looking like a white person and not knowing what that really means. She's out in California living this life for the first time without her mother, on her own, trying to live as a white woman, but also live like kind of low key so that no one notices that she is not white. So that means not being friends with other black people, so that no one notices that her skin tone might be a little darker in the sun, or that her hair frizzes when it rains, or anything like that. She's gotten a job at a Hollywood studio as a phone operator, and so she's just like, I'm just gonna live this life. Her childhood friend that she grew up with, she's just like, you are not the same person that I thought you were. So that's what's going on with Kitty. We finally find out who Kitty Carr is. And then in the second timeline with the St. John family, still bored. Don't like any of them. They're all kind of annoying. We spend the most time with Elise, the oldest St. John sister, and she's just really giving us a whole lot of nothing. She has come into contact with someone who used to be like a photographer for Kitty, but like you don't really know what the relationship with the photographer and Kitty was. You just know that the photographer had a grandson. The grandson now knows Elise. You still don't know what the connection is between the St. John family and Kitty is. So it's still up in the air. I think I'm gonna barrel through the rest of this just to kind of get it over with, finish it. Like, it's not bad, but it's not good. I just finished. Did you hear about Kitty Carr? I was making some cookies, some chocolate chip banana bread cookies. Just sent me a recipe, and I had 2 dying bananas, so I had to do something. So I made some cookies. While I was doing all of that, I was listening to the last hour or so of this, and I finished. And I'm giving this a strong 3.25. It's taken me so long to get here because I just was not invested enough in the dual timelines, which I love. I love a dual timeline. I love someone being in one decade or century and then someone else being in a completely different one. You would think I would love this. I will say that I enjoyed most of the timeline where we were with Kitty and her family. So like starting in the 1920s or 30s and going all the way up to the 50s and 60s. That's where she starts to intertwine with the more recent timeline. And I will say that those chapters were really fascinating. I was interested in what was going on, how Kitty was feeling, how she was scared about being found out, you know, the people that she interacted with and their feelings towards her being Black but passing as a white woman. And then for me, the ending was just so unrealistic. And I was like, I see what they're trying to do here. But like, we have this very real situation, well, fictionally, but we have what could potentially have been a very real situation for people, and maybe not to the scale that it is shown in Kitty Carr, although who knows how many actresses and actors were passing as white, how many executives and people have Black lineages and know about it and still decided to pass as white. Who knows? But for this in particular, the ending of this, I appreciate the optimism. But it was just like, this is so far-fetched. Not even because of what they were trying to do, but because of like just logistically, it didn't work for me. That's where I am with this. Am I glad that I read this? I don't know. But I am glad that I finished all of these books. It was not a great experience. I could see why these were not the highest rated of the books that I have. Nothing about this was truly successful. And so I don't know if I failed anything. Is there something to have failed? I don't know. This is where we are with this. So look at that. Goodreads. Making sense for once. Anywho's, that's what I've got for you guys today. Have you guys had any book of the month books that were just like truly disappointments, or just not even truly disappointments, but just like they're very like average? Let me know. Let's talk about it down in the comments. If you've read any of these and you enjoyed them, let's talk about that too. I'd love to hear what you enjoyed about them, especially the cartographers. Since I did not make it very far, does it get more interesting? That's all I have for you guys today, and until next time, bye.